Once upon a time, in the world of business, where companies rose and fell like empires in history books, two researchers named Jim Collins and Jerry Porras set out to find why. It was the early 1990s and they spent 6 long years digging through archives, interviewing legends and comparing giants. So why were there some companies such as Boeing, Johnson & Johnson, Disney, and Walmart that weren't just successful for a decade or two, but endured for generations, becoming visionary companies? Imagine a young entrepreneur sitting in a quiet room, dreaming of building something big. He thinks the secret is a revolutionary product, or a charismatic leader like a modern-day king perhaps, or pure luck in timing the market. But that's not the case. The study showcased 18 visionary companies, premier institutions that had stood the test of time, widely admired with multiple generations of leaders and products. Each was paired with a strong comparison company, a rival that had similar opportunities but never quite reached the same legendary status. Let's debunk a myth. In order to become a visionary company, you need to have a single charismatic visionary leader who can simply look up at the stars and know that the time is now. Instead, the founders were known something as clock builders, architects who created organizations that could tell time forever, even long after they were gone. Being built to last isn't about hitting the market at the right time, it's about clock building, about creating long-lasting impact. Take Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. In a tiny garage in Palo Alto, they didn't just invent great electronics, they built a culture, values, and systems that would outlive themselves. They were clock builders. Contrast this with time tellers who chase the next big idea but leave nothing lasting behind. The genius lay in embracing paradoxes, the genius of the and, instead of the tyranny of the or. Think of it like yin and yang. Visionary companies pursued both innovation and discipline, short-term profits and long-term vision, preserving core values and stimulating relentless progress. Visionary companies have a core ideology, an almost sacred combination of core values, timeless guiding principles, and a core purpose, a reason for being beyond just making money. Walt Disney didn't just make cartoons, his purpose was to make people happy. Johnson & Johnson lived by our credo. I'll leave a link to review theirs. It's focused on putting customers, employees, and community first, even famously recalling Tylenol back in 1982 from the Chicago Tylenol murders, where capsules were laced with cyanide, prompting a massive recall, and this led to the tamper-proof packaging that we have today, despite the recall costing Johnson & Johnson millions of dollars. Procter & Gamble held integrity and quality as sacred. These weren't fluffy slogans on walls, they were religiously preserved through thick and thin. Let's make sure this is clear. Cultures, policies, norms, strategies, and structure can change. They must continue to evolve and drive progress. However, the core ideology, values, and purpose cannot. These must be preserved in order for a company to be built to last. But core ideology alone wasn't enough. Visionary companies paired preservation with progress through BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, bold, clear, compelling missions that fired up the organization. In 1907, Henry Ford set a BHAG for his company to build a motor car that would be affordable to everybody, so that anyone would be able to enjoy the freedom a motorized vehicle could bring. Now let's imagine we are in the hot seat of one of these companies, Boeing. In the 1950s, we are members of the management team. Our main customer, who's provided over 80% of our business, is the Air Force. Our company is known for its military prowess and engineering. Our engineers have an idea to build a jet aircraft for the commercial market, despite earlier attempts resulting in failure. Our data suggests commercial airlines in both the United States and Europe have expressed very little interest in the idea of a commercial jet from our company. No one has done it before. In fact, our rival, Douglas Aircraft, believes actually that propeller-driven planes will continue to dominate the sector. Oh, also, it's going to take a lot of resources and time to develop such a project, around 3 years of profit in fact. What would you do in this instance? What actually happened was Boeing bet the entire company on the jet age with the 707, risking everything to leap ahead when rivals hesitated, expressing we're going to dominate commercial aviation. It was risky, scary, and it worked. These goals weren't safe, they were hairy. Enough to scare most away, yet inspiring enough to bring people to a strong sense of purpose. When creating a BHAG, there's a few things to consider. Number one, a BHAG should make you uncomfortable. Uttering it should seem daunting. A BHAG must be very clear, like sail the ocean. There should be more follow-on BHAGs so the company also doesn't hit a ceiling. Visionary companies built cult-like cultures, intense, almost religious dedication to the core ideology. New hires were indoctrinated rigorously, like Nordstrom's legendary service culture that turned employees into zealots who went far beyond normal retail. HP had the HP way. Management by wandering around, open doors, respect for individuals. And if you like this type of content, consider subscribing, because I'm going to be actually putting out some videos like the HP way and other videos to help you guys on your path to success. Now, the HP way, it wasn't soft, it was demanding. Those who didn't fit were weeded out early. The result? A tight-knit elite team that preserved the essence and passed it on for generations. The mechanics behind these cultures started with a screening process that filtered out those who fit the core ideology and those who did not. Even screening after the first few years of being hired. Ongoing training programs, teaching values, history, and tradition. On-the-job socialization with peers and supervisors. Incentivized advancement linked to corporate ideology. Corporate mottos, affirmations that reinforce psychological commitment. And continuous verbal and written excerpts to emphasize values, heritage, and a sense of being a part of something special. Progress wasn't always planned. Many visionary companies acted like Darwinian laboratories. Multiply variations, try lots of experiments, and let the strongest survive as nature intended. Accept that mistakes will be made, take small steps forward first, and give people the room they need for freedom and movement so that in turn brilliant ideas may spontaneously appear. Keep building the clock with mechanisms that make these points possible. 3M's story was legendary. An employee named Richard Drew, a young lab technician at 3M, invented both masking tape in 1925 and clear cellophane tape, what we use in all packaging, gift wrapping, that clear tape in the 1930s. By observing practical problems, auto painters needed clean lines for two-tone jobs, leading to masking tape, and Drew later applied cellophane and adhesive to create waterproof, transparent tape, sparking 3M's tape division and establishing a legacy of innovation from everyday challenges. A year later, Arthur Fry and Spencer Silver used a failed adhesive to invent what we now know as Post-it notes. These were accidents, yes, but they didn't happen by mistake. 3M encouraged 15% bootleg time or 1 day a week for personal projects. Mistakes were tolerated, even celebrated, as long as people created and learned. Another pattern they noticed was visionary companies grew leaders from within. CEOs were usually longtime insiders steeped in the ideology. This ensured seamless continuity and protected against outsiders and possible takeover shifting core ideology. Take Colgate and a comparison to Procter & Gamble for nearly 4 generations. They had insider top management. But by the 1940s, it shrank because the new outside management didn't care for the core values or ideas. He only cared about expansion, and unfortunately the company couldn't keep up. Cracker Barrel recently went through a similar experience where they were trying to join the hip and new crew despite contradicting their core ideology of Southern comfort and rustic country themed restaurants. They lost $100 million in market value as this was viewed negatively. Luckily, they kept their older logo over intensifying backlash against the change. Legendary companies also maintained uneasy peace. They're never satisfied. Good enough never is. Merck aimed to be the preeminent drug maker, and Walmart relentlessly drove costs down and service up to become a market for everyone. The ultimate paradox. This yin-yang dynamic preserved the core, ideology, values, purpose, while stimulating progress, change, innovation, BHAGs, and experiments. The drive for progress enables the core ideology, for without continual change and forward movement, the company, the carrier of the core, will fall behind in an ever-changing world and cease to be strong or perhaps even to exist. Change everything, products, strategies, structures, but never the core. This is why some companies endured crises, leadership changes, and market shifts while others faded away. True and lasting magic isn't about being the flashiest time teller, but in building a clock that keeps ticking for 100 years or more. The visionary companies weren't lucky or blessed with perfect timing. They built institutions with enduring mechanisms that aligned people, preserved the essence, and drove endless progress. J. Willard Marriott lived by the motto, keep on being constructive and doing constructive things until it's time to die. Make every day count to the very end. A persistent need to progress, the drive for progress in a built-to-last company can never be satisfied even if they achieve massive success. The drive for progress doesn't wait for the world to say it's time to change or it's time to invent something new. No, like the drive inside a great artist or prolific inventor, it is simply there, pushing them forward. Jim Collins said, you don't create Disneyland, build the 747, pursue Six Sigma quality, invent 3M Post-it notes, and institute employee stock ownership in the 1880s. These things arise out of the need for progress, to do better, create something new, and take things further than they have ever been done before. And so the story teaches us all. If you want something built to last, stop chasing the next big idea alone. Build the organization first. Embed the ideology deeply. Set audacious goals, experiment wildly, grow leaders from within, and embrace the genius of and. Then perhaps your creation will outlive you, becoming not just a company, but a legend that will echo through generations. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.